Hey everyone, my name is Max and this is my presentation on paint as an object. Whether you've experienced paint using watercolor as a kid or oil paint as an adult, everyone has had an experience with paint. Not everyone realizes though that paint is used in everyday life and it has shaped the world into what it is today. Many don't know this, but historical documentation actually started with paint much before it started with words. And that would be written language, of course. Paint is really important because it transcends any language barriers and cultural barriers. You don't need to know Latin in order to look at a painting from the Renaissance era, and you don't need to be Christian to look at a Baroque painting. But you do have to speak French to read a French paint. Doesn't have that problem. As long as you can see, you can appreciate a painting. A very interesting and important part about history is bias, actually. And because of that, paint also represents bias. History is just many different viewpoints of the same event. Everyone is biased, and since everyone is biased, that means the people who wrote history were biased. Every person is biased, and that means that any retelling of history will be also biased. There's a very famous painting called The Road of Calvary, and it's done by Pieter Bruegel, I think that's how it's pronounced. And it's a very secular painting, which is kind of weird for the art period that it's in. So many paintings from this period actually focus on the holiness of Jesus or God or whatever, but this painting actually focuses on the callousness and brutality of the crowd. Every painting from this period is biased, but we can see that with Bruegel's very clearly because he was trying to convey a message that other paintings weren't. Something else is that paint actually encourages viewer bias. Art is viewed through the lens of your own life and all of your philosophical views and cultural values and everything like that. Artists know that, but they still continue painting, and it's because they accept that their art is up for interpretation and it might not be viewed how they want it to be, but that's kind of the nature of art. So therefore, art encourages bias. Another important aspect of paint is its ability to protest. Most protests have used paint in some way or another, whether it's a mural or graffiti or paint on a banner. Graffiti and murals can be done anonymously as long as you don't get caught, and that means that people can protest totalitarian governments without fear of backlash or legal consequences, again, as long as they don't get caught. And with a mural or graffiti being in a public place, yes, it can be removed, but there's still going to be a lot of people that see it, and that means that their message is reaching a wide audience without them having to be giving a speech in front of a huge crowd where there could be violence or whatever. What does this abstract painting make you feel? How about this painting? And what about this one? So paint can depict emotional scenes and that can make you feel emotions, but it can also make you feel emotions in the form of color, like we see in abstract movements. Some think yellow represents joy, others think that it represents insanity, and others think that it's just an ugly color. But one thing is for sure, colors represent emotions and they can make you feel certain emotions. Paint has had a profound effect on the world. It represents history and history's bias. It represents protest as a unique form of dissent. It represents emotions with its many ways of evoking feelings. Paint represents history, protest, and emotion.